beautiful topic that we love to our hearts, which is how Web3 and esports intersect with each other. So I think there will be like probably 2 rounds of questions here, which is how Web3 can help esports, if they can help in any way, or the technology, and the other way around, which will be how can esports make Web3 gaming growth, if that's one of the avenues. So I'll probably start with the first one. We know that esports organizations are heavily dependent on sponsorships and advertising. And that's something that can make the road a little bit bumpy, because when the economy, so from a macroeconomic perspective, when companies are really willing to spend on marketing, they do it. But like in the current environment with higher interest rates, and like companies start to cut they start to cut in their marketing budgets. So my question here for all of you is, do you think that Web3 as a technology and potential use cases can bring some new monetization alternatives for esports? And I'll probably start with you, Ron, if you have some to help here.
Sure. So look, I think from a monetization perspective, this came up in one of the previous panels as well. Like, there's no doubt that Web3, because of all the liquidity in the system and the high APV of the users, like there's an opportunity to help with monetization. I think the other point you were making, which is like how does esports become more self-reliant when it comes to branding or sponsorship or promotions? I think that's an interesting question, right? Because I think that needs to get solved on its own with or without Web3, although Web3 might be able to help. And the way I think about it is, I think the big change that has happened with games in the last 10 years is we've had 2 different cycles, right? So games went from being niche and small, like we had maybe 250 to 300 million gamers, right? Of those, 150 million were playing on consoles and 100 million people were playing on PCs. And then Facebook happened and suddenly another 300 million people were playing games. And that meant that you didn't have to have an expensive console or a gaming rig, and you didn't have to have really amazing amount of skill, and everyone could play. And then mobile happened, right? And then you got another billion players. And so that was really huge. I think what esports did was esports added like another layer on top of that, which was spectatorship. And so now you've got like a couple of billion people playing, but maybe, I don't know, another 500 million people watching. And so I think that's interesting. And if you put that in context of sports in general, like there's some sports that get a lot of sponsorship dollars and some sports that get very little, right? Football gets a lot, field hockey not so much, right? And so if you think about that in terms of video games, it's the same thing, but the difference is video games is not one sport. Every game is an individual sport, right? So like Dota and Fortnite might get a lot of dollars, but that leaves less dollars in the market for like, 10,000 other games. So as an industry, we've got this big industry, but then it's fragmented. So I think that's one of the big problems is, just like any other game within esports, like the top 10 games account for 90% of the sponsorship and branding dollars. And so I feel like that's where, when you think about the problems, I think that's where you start with, like, how do you change that? Over time, I think there'll be maturity, and I think that problem will get solved. Web3 is really interesting because maybe you can stop relying on external brands, and you can stop relying on external, TV companies and like streaming companies, and you can have more funding internally. And I think that's why the conversation we were having earlier, which is when you can start open sourcing games and putting more power in the hands of the community to build elements of the games. What I love about Web3 gaming is like how involved some of the communities are, right? These are people who are building the game because they feel like they own the game. And so maybe you don't need like one major sponsor. Maybe, there's like 1,000 true fans, right? Like that's something that was the basis for a lot of what we're seeing in the creator economy is you don't need 1 million fans. Like you need 100 or 1,000 true fans who love your game or love your music or love your work so much that they're willing to pay $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000. So I feel like that to me is really interesting when it comes to Web3 is the numbers are small, but the dedication of the community is really big. And if esports can find a way to harness that in some way, that could be really interesting. The second one, which is a question somebody asked around, was like, betting and monetization, it's controversial. I feel like it's something that's probably still 5 to 10 years away, which is as the industry matures, you'll probably start to see a little bit of that come in, which is today, if you think about all the other major sports, whether that's like basketball or football or any other game, that's a major liquidity source, right? So those are some of the things that I think about as I think about maturity of esports, and then broadening the pool of liquidity and funds that are flowing in.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Excellent take. Fred, do you want to build on that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, is it working now? Yeah, no. So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me tell you that I think this is probably one of the best venues ever, and it is like light years ahead of everything that I've seen before. And you really deserve a round of applause,
Thank you for that.
the marvelous venue that you brought us. Yeah. As a compliment, and I thought a lot about the subject of this talk. I think there are mainly two things that I think we should speak about. The first one is the current business model of the esports industry. So it has a triangle built between the publisher, who creates the game, second, the teams and organizations, and third, the sponsors. And it is over this triangle that the whole esports industry is built at the moment with Web2, umbrella. And if we want to grow esports to Web3, we need to think about what will we change in the business model that really rewards this triangle in a different scope. And in my mind, what really makes sense is we can't think about a AAA game that is going to compete with Electronic Arts or Blizzard Activision in a matter of 2, 3, 4 years. I think it's super unrealistic. But if we create game economicus, completely reinvented, where we don't need an outside sponsor and we don't need a closed source publisher who controls completely the game environment, we can break down this triangle. And breaking down this triangle is a moment where the game has a self-economy that does not need that much sponsorship fund to grow. And also in terms of prize monies, that the esports competitions are the way that they attract people to play the game and play with, I think crypto economy can completely reinvent the centralized sponsorship model, against distribute not only the rewards, but also include the funding from each of the persons and transform them into micro sponsors that all together they create one big sponsor against just onboard one big sponsor to cover everything, and then it's super centralized. That I think is the first thing. The second thing that is also very, very concerning, and we need to solve it out to let the whole Web3 gaming industry grow, is to completely split between gamers and financial investors. Because Bitcoin has a purpose to solve out the problem in the financial system. But our games, they are not going to solve out the problem in the financial system. They are going to solve out the problem in the gaming industry. And sometimes we try to attract crypto investors to convert them into gamers. And I think that is not going to happen. So we need to bring gamers without all the knowledge of financial markets, candlesticks, technical analysis, whatever, because that is boring like hell for hardcore gamers. So we need to remove that from the storyline and focus a storyline in a game where, listen, you can play this game, but at the same time, you can get something back and deliver something back to the whole community.
Okay, so you believe that it is also dependent on the publisher. So the publisher has really to take a step forward in terms of opening or changing that trilemma that you were speaking about, right?
I really believe that the new publishers, and that's in fact what we are doing in Real Fevr, I don't want to be a publisher. I just want to be a deployer of an open source game that can include wherever NFT collections, gaming collections that exist, and give a choice to the people to choose and play in our ecosystem. If they decide to go another one, it's fine. But the ecosystem, we can't have the mindset of a centralized publisher. We need to build games that everyone can contribute and everyone can participate. Otherwise, it's not Web3. It's Web like 2.2, 2.5, whatever, and it's bullshit for me.
Okay. Dan, do you agree? Do you follow the same?
Yeah, thank you guys. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Dan from Azuro. Yeah, and completely agree with guys about this thing with sponsorship. And I really like Fred's idea that we can have some mini sponsors instead of only one. So I think it can be done through some kind of DAO, for example. So and we already have some examples. I know that there is one team. It's American football team, as far as I know, and it's managed by the DAO. I think it's a cool example. So, and probably we can tokenize some esports team as well. And I think esports is much easier to make in this way because it's just 5 people. If we are talking, for example, about CS:GO. So actually, I'm a CS:GO player as well. Really like it.
So you'll play in the tournament?
No. Unfortunately, no. But if it's possible, I will be more than happy. I even have my team here, you know. Yeah, and yeah, I think it can work. Also, in Azuro, we are using almost the same philosophy about these mini sponsors, etc. Because our idea, so we're building betting protocol, and the idea is that we want to empower anyone to build betting application. Fully decentralized, fully on-chain, on top of our protocol. Probably it can be used for teams as well, because, okay, we have these DAO sponsors. They can also build their own betting application, for example, and they can still earn some revenue share from the protocol if bettors will support their team, will make bets, etc. So, and they can earn some money for this DAO as well. I think it's really a huge idea, and it can work. Why not?
Yeah, that's a great area to explore, which is, so imagining that the publishers, so going back to the part where the publishers have to change something. Let's imagine that they don't change. And I'll pick your example where there is also I think it is in the UK, there is a team that is a DAO. So it's managed as a DAO. So do you believe that this model can also be implemented to esports, where basically what we are doing is provide a way for the fans to be closer to the teams that they support, and in a certain way, having some power of decision in terms of how that team is run. Do you believe that that is a possibility? Ron?
I'm not the biggest believer in DAOs, and I can explain why. I think if you open completely the decision power in a long-term vision of the organization to everybody who participates, I think we will be screwed, because not everybody has the vision for 3, 4, 5, 6 years of commitment, and a lot of people will try to extract value in the first 24 hours or 48 hours, and that is very, very dangerous when you have a long run to walk by. But I do think that a DAO can work very, very well if we find a good way of create representative groups of the community, of the game, of the players, around the table, and then make a wise decisions together. But completely open, when we need to do such a hard task, when we need to fight with our weapons against Web2 game publishers, if we allow everyone to speak at the same time, it's like it will be crazy. But I think that should not be somehow the focus. I think the focus should be how can we create on-board procedures to facilitate the users in a matter of 2-3 clicks to jump into a game, in the same way that you go to Steam or to Epic Store or to any other store and you just press 2 buttons and you are playing a game. That is what I think we should focus on. Because sometimes, once again, Bitcoin must be completely decentralized. But this has a certain level of decentralization, but also we need to think about how we build it permanently, you know? So I think the way is more to solve out the onboard and the customer journey issues more than just, okay, let's decentralize everything, expecting that this is going to work. And personally, I don't believe on that.
Okay, Ron, do you have the same opinion?
Well, I think it's an interesting experiment, right? I don't know if it solves, like to Fred's point, like I don't know if it solves like the inherent issue, because I feel like we're also, I don't know if there's a deficit of funding for games right now. Like we're probably in one moment in history where there's never been as much money flowing into games, right? For about 10 years, we saw nothing, right? From 2010 to 2020, there was no investment in games. And Recent has like a $500 million fund. There's Bitcraft, there's Transcend, there's all these different funds. There's massive consolidation in gaming. So I feel like the problem isn't that there isn't enough funding for games being created. So yeah, I mean, look, it wouldn't hurt to have crypto dollars or crypto euros or Bitcoins going into funding game development. I feel like it's not a problem that needs solving right now, but I think where it could be really helpful, and I worked with a bunch of gaming teams at Polygon, right? And they weren't looking for dollars to build their games. They were looking at like innovative ways of engaging their fan base, right? And I feel like that's where, again, it kind of comes back to the same point about community, right? Can you use the mechanics of blockchain and the mechanics of crypto to build a deeper fan base, right? Who's willing to do more than just watch the game, right? Are they willing to be advocates and like promote the game? Are they willing to put their dollars to, into a pool which helps the team compete better, right? I think those could be really interesting things because the games are being built. What's not happening is like enough games rising up to the top where they have decent viewership numbers or decent prize pools or teams that have, sufficient talent. So again, like I said, interesting experiment. Like I love the idea of DAOs. When I was at Polygon, someone on my team was part of the 3 people who bid on the Constitution for Constitution DAO. The same group had looked at buying, the Eagles or one of the other NFL teams. And I think those are like really, really interesting ideas. I think they're deeply rooted in like what the blockchain movement is all about, which is, democratizing access to some really, really interesting things, which in the past have only been available to maybe like 20 people in the world. So I think from an experiment perspective, really interesting. And I hope to see it happen in the next year or 2. But I'd also love to see like a lot of other interesting ways of promoting it.
A lot of ifs, right? Because a DAO, like an institution, requires a lot of coordination. And like the more people you add to it, the more complex it gets. So it's tough. I agree. It's kind of an experiment that is worth taking and see where it takes some of the things that are being made. But at the same time, we have to recognize, like Fred was saying, that it's really tough. Managing a company or managing a product is already tough. So imagine something that is like completely decentralized. So the number of rules that you have to create are much higher. And people have to be really willing to change things along the way. And that might be the thing that really, that is really complicated. Dan, I don't know if you think that DAOs could be something that esports teams could use as well, like to.
Yeah, I think yes, and I agree with guys that if everyone who participates in the DAO will take decisions, obviously it will be a mess and it will not work. But I think if we will have DAO, it doesn't mean that really every solution should be took by the DAO. So DAO can hire some manager, etc. It's not a problem in my opinion. And it can be used only for some really big strategic decisions. And even with this, in this situation, we can use delegated votes, etc. And I think it will work like it works right now in a lot of protocols, such Compound, Aave, etc. almost everyone just delegates their votes to someone who they believe in, and that's it. So I think it can work. And DAO shouldn't be a mechanism to, I don't know, solve the problems and to take decisions, but mostly like a funding way, how to fund a team, etc. So I think so. And I think not even about DAO, but about Web3 in general. I don't think that we should be focused on creating some games that will be fully on-chain. I think we should just understand that we need to move on-chain only something that connected with money, with some assets, etc. And it will be great. Like if we're talking about esports, it's a huge market with skins, right? I think if it will be like an NFT, it will be great, because now it's really very painful process to make just a gift for friends in CSGO because of the security aspects. It's become very complicated. So if it will be moved on-chain, it will be great. And also, if we will have DAO, we will have the skins on-chain. DAO can earn some money through the royalties and earn money for the team.
Definitely. There's a business model that can be explored, really. And yeah, if the DAO exists, they can attract, of course, friends to come together. Look, come to this. Like nowadays, if you look at a soccer team, right, you also have to go to a general assembly. I don't know if it is called like that, but like to vote on strategic decisions. So you don't vote on everything. So yeah, DAO could be used for some specific reasons. And the NFTs, for example, branded by the team could be a way to attract the fans to fund the team.
Yeah, and it will be on chain as well, so it's very native use case.
That's a great use case. I'd like to share with you guys something. I don't know if the audience saw, but Mongrel, which is a famous Fortnite player, basically he won $760,000 over 4 years. And this Mongrel, he basically played for 1 week Dookie Dash, which for the ones that don't know, is basically a game where to enter the game, you have to have a pass. And just the people that hold Bored Apes or Mutant Apes, I think these ones also received that sewer pass. And this created a dynamic where, okay, investors or holders or people that are part of the community that are not gamers, again, they choose to sell or rent this asset to people that are players, like Mongrel, that bought the pass for $9,000 and ended up winning a key that nobody during the game knew what was the purpose of the key and what it was for. And somebody bought that key from Mongrel for 1.6 million. So my question is, of course, this is impressive, but do you think that this is going to attract the attention of esports teams like Mongrel plays Fortnite and he suddenly in a week was playing this game? Do you think this will take a hit in terms of esports organizations looking at what is being done in Web3? And this was a casual game, by the way.
0.12 million, 1,000 ETH. Today, 1.6 million because the price already pumped. So that's more or less it. I tell you this. It's the worst thing that can happen to build good and strong fundamentals for this industry. Because once again, when people jumps here expecting to get Bitcoin at 26, expecting to sell it at 50, that is always bad for the fundamentals of the industry. And if you move from a certain behavior to a new behavior industry where you are expecting to get also that key for 0 and sell it for 1,000 ETH, that is a wrong drive for you to build the industry. Once again, I am a person that has 6 years and 10 months / played on World of Warcraft. I always paid. I'm paying a subscription since 2005, and I never stop to pay the subscription. So I consider myself one of the examples where Blizzard got one guy that for 16 years is paying $12 a month in a recurring revenue, which is the most beautiful we can get in terms of companies' valuations. And I'm paying $12 a month, every month, since 2005. Now, how can we do this in Web3? And that should be mainly like the challenge that we all must answer. But in a way that, okay, let's just start to play this because it will make you millionaire, that is gambling, is not gaming. We need to change the word. Also, one thing that I would like to say is sometimes crypto and Web3 in general, we have very complicated concepts for people that just comes here for the first day. DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, is one of that situations. We can't explain for a non-crypto person in 30 seconds what the DAO is. But we can explain what is a guild. So you build a guild, you get your buddies, you get your folks, you play together, and you create rules to rule your guild in a way to scale up and become an esports team, get sponsorship, compete, and eventually win. So just remove the word DAO because it's not sexy, but if you build guilds and guilds engage with multiple players, then we move on. We don't need to create new words.
The buzzwords.
Yeah, exactly. So, and once again, if this would be not a crypto conference, but just an esports, traditional CSGO, Fortnite, League of Legends conference, when you say DAO, everybody, like, I don't know what they are talking about. But if you create a monetization model for your guild, nice. I want to hear about it because it makes sense, you know? So sometimes it is also our responsibility to simplify the words and not follow only crypto, trendy, sexy words that we know some tokens will pump because they are talking about it. So we should stay for something much, much bigger and not just, I want to sell a key for 1,000 ethers because I know this is going to happen like once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I agree about this idea that DAO is not the perfect word because yes, we have guild, clan, etc., and it's already familiar for all gamers. Yes, that's a nice idea. So about this story with Fortnite, I'm not, I don't know a lot about this story, but yeah, I think it's very interesting and it's obviously can bring some value for, yeah.
What ended up happening was basically that, so an esports professional that just played like Fortnite saw like, okay, I'll try this game, which is a pure skill-based game. So it was a runner, and basically he was playing like for 1 week, and like a lot of people were playing this game. And in the end, this key that he won was purchased by, I would say, a speculator. So in these terms, I think he ended up winning because of there is a speculator that he took advantage of in a sense. Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like you create this environment where some things are open. So if you want something in real life that was a key, probably it will not be that easy to sell that key. But since it was an NFT and you had all these people that support this community, there was somebody that basically, okay, I'm going to buy it for 1,000 ETH, as Fred was saying. So the question here is, okay, definitely I think my question was, this draw attention. I think the answer is, it is draw attention. The real question, and I think Fred answered perfectly, is this the good attention or the bad attention?
Yeah, I mean, look, to answer your question initially, will it draw attention? 100% yes, right? I mean, I'm sure people are looking at that and saying, is my profession of choice the right profession or not? But I think it's not binary. I think it's different, but it's related, right? And maybe I'll ask you a question, like, do you consider poker to be a sport or not? Or blackjack? Like, we have the World Series of Poker. There's a lot of kids growing up because they want to win, like, a $5 million blackjack game and be on TV. That's a sport. That's in some people's eyes, right? And so I feel like there, again, it goes to my point about, like, all these things just serve to expand esports in some ways, right? There are some people who are naturally suited to like, you know, quick twitch movements and motor skills, and they'll be great at Fortnite or League of Legends or Counter-Strike. And there are others who might be better at a different kind of game. And the fact is that even if it's speculators, like that takes a special skill set. There are people who are traders and they're good at it, and not everyone can do what they do, right? So yeah, like maybe there's somebody who chooses to go in that direction and not the other one, but overall I think it'd just be more people entering. Whether that's good or not, I don't know, right? The truth is it's going to happen, right? Because every time there's an opportunity to, you know, have arbitrage where you can, you know, buy something for less and sell it for more, and that's proven more and more times, like we're seeing now with the bull run, like there will be more people coming in, and I don't judge whether that's a good thing or not, a good thing or a bad thing.
So probably I'll move on to the next question, which I think it really relates with you, Dan, and with you, Fred, but feel free, Ron, to fill in. So betting and fantasy leagues are two emerging trends in esports. There's something that is growing in sports and is an emerging trend in esports. Do you believe that what you are building, I'll go straight to it, can be applied to the esports sector? It goes for you as it goes for you with Azuro.
It's a brilliant question. We didn't prepare it. I didn't know. But I'm going to be very, very straightforward here. I think blockchain technology can completely reinvent the betting industry in the way we know it today. But if it goes to the traditional betting system that we have today, I don't believe on it. I think the perfect match is smart contract-driven betting platforms included into Web3 games or even Web2 games, because we can also use those smart contracts inside a Web2 game. And why? Because betting is not as transparent as it should be, and sometimes it does not distribute the revenue in the same way to all the operators in an affiliation program. And one of the things that we started to design was exactly inspired in a very good use cases of betting that we have today. And we have a very close relation with one of the biggest Portuguese operators, which is Fevr Advertising, that you also know. With that knowledge, we can bring that knowledge on board and innovate through smart contracts. And the good thing is, when we use a betting system built on smart contracts, the revenue distribution has two really big advantages. The first is you do it real time. Second, everybody can audit, and everybody can see who's winning, what is winning, how is it winning, and how is it going, you know? So definitely, I think that is a multi-billion-dollar business in the next 5 to 10 years. It will change a lot, not for the traditional sports, because that is already done, and I don't think there will be not that much in innovation, but into esports with blockchain-driven, smart contracts-driven betting systems, definitely is a big bet.
Dan, are you already doing that?
Yeah, sure. To be honest, I'm completely against betting on the blockchain. It's a joke, obviously. Yeah, to be honest, I think that betting and blockchain, it's a really perfect match because it's an obvious use case. Because we have some biggest features of blockchain. It's trustless, composability, etc. And I think betting use all of them. So especially because of that, I have started this project, because I was really thinking why we still don't have some proper betting fully on chain. So about esports, yeah, obviously I think betting is make it much more interesting for people, for anyone, of course, because it brings some money to the market, to this industry anyway. So, and about Web3 betting, especially, and esports, I think it's a good match as well, because it's almost, it's very similar audience. So when I was at some esports tournaments, etc. For example, in last summer at Cologne, it was a huge event. So, and I realized that it's almost the same audience that we have right now, for example, at crypto conferences, almost the same people, etc. And I think they will realize value of on-chain betting, why it's better, why it's much better than Web2 classic betting. Because of that, yes. And we make really a big bet for esports in our approach. We even have some separate front-end operators, similar apps that focus only on esports. And I think it works. So yeah, we make really big bet on this stuff.
Cool. I think we've run out of time, so I'd just like to thank again Ron, Fred, and Dan for being here and everyone. So a round of applause for this great gentleman.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.